that would fill up the emptiness inside would go on. After he flushed the condom, he got back into bed with her. She was hoping for an excuse. Early start in the morning, wife waiting at home, anything. But he wanted to get back in bed and cuddle. He roughly moved in behind her and turned her so her back was against his chest. He had shaved himself, and she could feel the tiny spikes of returning hair pricking her back. You know, she got no further with the complaint. He pivoted his body, and now she was on her back, completely on top of him. His chest was like sandpaper. His arm came around from behind her, and he bent it at the elbow into a V. He then used his free hand to push her neck into the V. He tightened his arms, and she felt her air passages collapse. She could not yell for help. She had no air to make a sound. She struggled, but her legs were tangled in the sheets, and he was too strong. His hold on her neck was an iron vice. Darkness began shading the edges of her vision. He raised his head off the bed and brought his mouth to her ear. "People call me the Shrike," he whispered.
Jack. Chapter 1. I had called the story The King of Con Artists. At least, that was my headline. I typed it up top, but was pretty sure it would get changed, because it would be overstepping my bounds as a reporter to turn in a story with a headline. The headlines and the decks below them were the purview of the editor, and I could already hear Myron Levin chiding. Does the editor rewrite your leads or call up the subjects of your pieces to ask additional questions? No, he doesn't. He stays in his lane, and that means you need to stay in yours. Since Myron was that editor, it would be hard to come back with any sort of defense. But I sent in the story with a suggested headline anyway because it was perfect. The story was about the dark netherworld of the debt collection business. 600 million a year of it siphoned off in scams. And the rule at Fair Warning was to bring every fraud down to a face, either the predators or the preys, the victims or the victimizers. And this time, it was the predator. Arthur Hathaway, the king of con artists, was the best of the best. At 62 years old, he had worked every con imaginable in a life of crime centered in Los Angeles, from selling fake gold bars to setting up phony disaster relief websites. Right now, he ran a racket convincing people they owed money that they didn't really owe and getting them to pay it. And he was so good at it that junior swindlers were paying him for lessons on Mondays and Wednesdays at a defunct acting studio in Van Nuys. I had infiltrated as one of his students and learned all I could. Now, it was time to write the story and use Arthur to expose an industry that bilked millions each year from everybody from little old ladies with dwindling bank accounts to young professionals already deep in the red with college loans. They all fell victim and sent their money because Arthur Hathaway convinced them to send it. And now, he was teaching 11 future con men and one undercover reporter how to do it for $50 a head twice a week. The Swindler School itself might be his greatest con of all. The guy was truly a king with a psychopath's complete lack of guilt. I also had reporting in the story on the victims whose bank accounts he had cleaned out and whose lives he had ruined. Myron had already placed the story as a co-project with the Los Angeles Times, and that guaranteed it would be seen and the Los Angeles Police Department would have to take notice. King Arthur's reign would soon be over, and his round table of junior con men would be rounded up as well. I read the story a final time and sent it to Myron, copying William Marchand, the attorney who reviewed all Fair Warning stories pro bono. We didn't put anything up on the website that was not legally bulletproof. Fair Warning was a 5-person operation if you counted the reporter in Washington, D.C., who worked out of her home. One wrong story spawning a winning lawsuit or forced settlement would put us out of business. And then I'd be what I had been at least twice before in my career, a reporter with no place to go. I got up from my cubby to tell Myron the story was finally in, but he was in his own cubicle talking on the phone, and I could tell as I approached that he was on a fundraising call. Myron was founder, editor, reporter, and chief fundraiser.